Good morning, everyone, and we are very pleased to welcome you to the State University of New York College at Old Westbury for this special New York State Tax Commission hearing. We are glad to have with us this morning our Commissioner, Jim Wetzler, our former State Comptroller and current Chair of the SUNY Board of Trustees, McCall, and Governor George Pataki, former Governor of the State of New York. We also have some other special guests with us this morning. We have the county executives of this beautiful winter wonderland that you're enjoying this morning. Ed Mangano from Nassau County, and Executive Steve Ballone from Suffolk County. Mayor Ralph Swazi of Glen Cove, right here. I don't know if I see my colleague Stu Rabinowitz from Hofstra University sitting right in front of me. Hey, Stu, good to see you. And did Kevin Law from the Long Island Association make it right next to him? Two of the greatest leaders Long Island has. I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so glad to be among so many dear and good friends. But one of the best friends that we've got here at the State University of New York is the governor of the state. We have a special room for him here because he comes and he holds hearings and talks. He's truly a friend of the State University, and it's always our pleasure to have him come and do whatever he wants, because generally what he does is good for us and good for the state of New York. Welcome the governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all of you. First, to Dr. Butts, we want to thank him for his leadership and his hospitality. We come here so often, he's going to send us a rent bill at the end of the year, I'm afraid. But let's give him a round of applause for his great leadership for this great university. I want to thank the county executives who've joined with us, County Executive Mangano and County Executive Ballone. They've been great partners. We've done a lot of great work together, and we were talking about it before we came in, possibility of snow today, and I told them the state stands ready to be of assistance. I have 2 extra shovels in the car, which I'm going to give them when they leave, just in case they need any help. To Governor George Pataki, Comptroller McCall, and the members of this commission, a hearty thank you on behalf of all of the people of the state of New York. This is probably the most difficult issue for the state, the most difficult issue for the people within the state. Tax policy, tax fairness, and how do we use the tax code in the state to actually improve the economy, get the economy running, and thereby generate more tax revenues. And that balance and that interconnection is at the heart of making this state the great empire state. We took an exhaustive look at taxes in this state. We started with a commission headed by Peter Solomon. Many of the members on this commission were also on that commission, to look at the tax code itself, simplify the tax code, reduce some of the loopholes, some of the nonsensical provisions, frankly, within the tax code, but just study the tax code on a deep look and come up with a list of options to simplify the code and make the code more fair. And that commission worked very hard for about a year and came up with a number of options. We then presented those options to this group of professionals, and we said, review those options and tell us what are the best options to go forward, again, about fairness, about equity within the tax code, and primarily changes to the tax code that not only help people, but help businesses and get the economy stronger all across this state. The emphasis for this commission was on property taxes and taxes that were especially onerous to business. Why? Property tax, first of all, because we had just gone through the personal income tax code last year and we made changes. And the property tax is the largest single tax in this state. We collect about $50 billion per year in the property tax. We collect about $40 billion in the personal income tax. So just on the numbers, the property tax is the larger tax. Also, it is the tax that is crushing New Yorkers. You ask any New Yorker about what is their personal income tax rate. Nobody knows the income tax rate. They know, and they can tell you to the cents how much they're paying in property taxes. Our property taxes are disproportionate nationwide. Long Island, the northern suburbs, Westchester, Rockland, you're paying some of the highest property taxes in the United States of America. Upstate New York, by percentage of home value, they pay the highest property taxes in the nation. So it is a crushing tax on people. It is also a crushing tax on business. And if you ask business owners, why would you think of leaving the state? Why might you not come to the state? They go right to the state property tax. So we asked this commission to focus on the property tax. We already did a lot of work with what's called a property tax cap at 2%, which we passed, but we want to do even more. And then the second order of business was taxes on businesses that were onerous, that were causing businesses to leave the state or not come to the state. So those were the two main questions posed to this commission. I looked quickly at a copy of the report today. It is a very impressive one. I haven't had a chance to go through it thoroughly. This morning was a little busy with the snow at all, but I look forward to going through it in depth, and there'll be a presentation that's going to be made now, a PowerPoint presentation of the report. And with that, I believe I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Wexler to go through a PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you very much, Governor. While I'm getting this working, there we go. Just want to clarify, I'm retired out of Deloitte Tax LLP, so don't give them credit or blame for whatever we're trying to do. So the commission took the governor's mandate and looked at features of the system where the tax system was damaging the economy and was imposing onerous burdens on taxpayers, and made suggestions for relief. There's $1 billion of property tax relief, and a second $1 billion of tax relief for businesses, energy consumers, and estate taxpayers. And we'll take you through our recommendations. Property tax, as we know, is a big issue with the state. The governor has given you some of the statistics. We have some of the counties we've got have some of the highest property taxes in the country, Westchester, Rockland, and Nassau. We've got counties where taxes as a percentage of income are high. A lot of these are in upstate New York where incomes are low, but taxes are high, and the property tax is a very, very onerous burden on homeowners in these counties. So we've got two recommendations. Recommendation number one is freeze property taxes for 2 years. Now, there's currently a 2% cap, and so for those jurisdictions that stay within the cap, in effect, the state's going to make up those 2% and give that 2% back directly to taxpayers. So from the taxpayer's point of view, property taxes stay frozen. And that's what happens in year one. Then in year two, we propose another year of freeze, but this year the freeze is contingent on local governments taking concrete steps towards reforms that involve streamlining, consolidation, other ways of providing permanent property tax relief to the taxpayers. Of course, the danger with any kind of state property tax relief is, you give the relief from the state level, but the local governments just raise property taxes to offset it. So there's really at the end of the day, no relief in the burden on the homeowners. Here we're going to freeze, but the freeze in the second year is contingent on adoption of meaningful steps to streamline and reduce costs on a going forward basis. That's recommendation number one. Recommendation number two is a property tax credit that will provide relief for taxpayers whose property tax is a large fraction of their income. So if property taxes on your principal residence exceed a certain percentage of your income, then you'll get a percentage of that excess, in effect, refunded back to you by the state as a personal income tax credit. There's currently a small provision like that in the existing law. This would greatly expand on it and provide relief to several million homeowners around the state whose property taxes are especially burdensome in relation to their income. A third area for recommendations is a major reform of corporate taxation in New York. The corporate tax in New York is really obsolete in a number of ways. It doesn't reflect recent regulatory changes in areas like financial services. It contains incentives for businesses not to employ property and payroll in New York. And what this reform does is it purges it simplifies the system by merging the bank tax with the tax on ordinary business corporations, which reflects modern regulatory reality. It purges from the system basically all features of the system that discourage the employment of people or the employment of property in New York. It simplifies the system in a number of ways. It closes some loopholes, reduces the rate from 7.1% to 6.5%, and for upstate manufacturers, we're proposing to reduce the rate down to 2.5%. We also provide a second form of relief to manufacturers, which is a credit which will be equal to 20% of the property tax bill on manufacturing property. This is a constant, you get around the state, you hear a lot, manufacturers concerned about their property tax burdens. This is going to be some very meaningful relief for property tax on manufacturing property. So all in all, we expect this corporate tax package to dramatically improve the business climate. It's got a lot of support within the business community, and so we think that'll make a major difference to the economic environment here in New York. Fourth recommendation is accelerate the phase out of what's called the 18A surcharge. This is a fee on producers of electric and gas and other utilities that is really passed on to their customers. So this is relief for the customers of electric, gas, and other utilities. There's a fee now that is scheduled to be eliminated by 2018. The proposal is for industrial customers, again focusing on manufacturing, which is the area of the economy which faces the most competition from around the world. Eliminate this in 2014 for industrial customers and accelerate the phase out for other customers. And lastly, we took a look at the estate tax. Now, the estate tax in New York is a very high tax. The rate goes up to 16%. And the reason it's 16% is that the federal government used to provide a credit for state estate taxes against the federal estate tax. And so there was 100% credit. So under Governor Pataki's leadership, when he was governor, the state modified its estate tax so that the state estate tax equaled this maximum federal credit. So basically the estate tax imposed no burden on New York taxpayers. You paid the state, but you got a dollar-for-dollar credit against your federal estate tax. Unfortunately, part of the Bush tax cuts, Congress repealed the credit about 10 years ago and replaced it with a deduction. So now we have a tax that's a 16% rate, which at one time imposed no burden, is now imposing a very substantial burden. And it's the reason the rate is 16% is not because any state policymaker ever took a look at that rate and said that's the right rate. It's because that's where Congress set this federal credit back in, I think it was 1926. And so the commission felt it was high time to take a look at estate taxes and say what's a reasonable rate, not just happen to conform to this federal law that's now been repealed. And so we're proposing to reduce the rate from 16% to 10%, to put it more in line with other rates in other state taxes. The estate tax exemption is only now $1 million. And today, it's a one-bedroom apartment in New York City can be $1 million. The federal estate tax exemption, in contrast, is $5.25 million. So the commission's proposing to phase the estate tax exemption up from the current level of $1 million up to match the federal threshold of $5.25 million. So state tax goes back to its normal role of really not applying to ordinary middle-income families, just to affluent families. And again, the evidence we saw was that the willingness of affluent people to live in New York is affected in a meaningful way by the estate tax. And the fact that New York is one of only 17 states that has an estate tax. So there are a lot of states you can move to with no estate tax at all. Our judgment was that that has a meaningful effect on location decisions of upper-income New Yorkers, and that by lowering the estate tax and increasing the exemption, we can again make New York much more competitive as a place for people to live and live out the rest of their lives. So that's our fifth recommendation. We think as a commission these recommendations have a meaningful impact on the state's business climate. They're providing relief in the areas where these current state taxes are most onerous. And so we hope the governor and the legislature will take a careful look at our package and hopefully move along and get things done. All right. Carl, I think you're next on the list.
If I'm next on the list, then I'm pleased to be next on the list, and I'm certainly pleased that the opportunity the governor has given me to serve on this commission and the Tax Fairness Commission as well. But most of all, I want to thank the governor for his leadership, which has brought about the kind of economic stability in the state that we're actually here to talk about reducing taxes. That has not happened for a long time. We have this ability because there will be a surplus. And unlike in past times when there was a surplus, it was just thrown at certain problems and it had no economic impact on our state. But what the governor has asked us to do is to take advantage of this opportunity to provide real relief to people who are paying burdensome property taxes. As the former comptroller who traveled across the state, this is what I heard all the time from business owners, from individual citizens, working families, that the property tax was simply a terrible burden. So we're going to relieve them of this burden by these proposals. And I want to thank the members of the commission who worked with us to bring this about. But there's another side of this that we have to look at, because why are property taxes so high? It's because of the spending by our towns and our municipalities. Now, we don't want them to sacrifice services, but I think we have to look at our municipal governments and say that they've got to do the same thing that Governor Cuomo has done at the state level and begin to reduce the amount of money we spend in terms of providing services by sharing services and finding other ways to reduce the burden that we have imposed by very high property taxes. So this commission and the governor, they're doing their part in terms of relieving the burden on individuals. But at the same time, the municipalities, our local governments, our school districts, all of the various levels of government have to find ways of working together, sharing services, and finding ways of reducing the kind of burden that has been imposed on our citizens. So, Governor, I hope you will continue to point out and to demonstrate by what you're doing at the state level that these same kinds of models can be put in place at local government so that we're reducing the burden that we are imposing on the citizens of New York. This commission has done its part, and now the municipalities have to do their part also in terms of making New York a place where people want to live, want to do business, and where we really can create jobs and improve the economy of New York State. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. Let me first thank Governor Cuomo for creating this commission and for asking me to serve as co-chair. I appreciate it very much, Governor. And there's not a whole lot that would get me back involved in state government, but the opportunity to cut taxes is one of them. And it's something I always tried to do while I was governor, and I appreciate the opportunity for us to make these proposals today. Let me first thank as well my fellow commissioner members, co-chairman McCall and the other members of the commission. And I want to just thank Larry Schwartz, the governor's chief of staff, and Bob Megna, because while the commission worked very hard, at the end of our meetings, we would dump a lot of requests for information on them, and by the next morning, we always had everything. So I appreciate their help and cooperation. The governor created this commission and asked us appropriately to focus on property taxes, the property tax burden in the state of New York. And I believe we've come up with a very sound proposal that, when coupled with the existing property tax cap the governor has already enacted, will allow homeowners, particularly homeowners here on Long Island and other hard places of this state, to understand that over the next 2 years, assuming the government stay within that cap, they're not going to see an increase in any of their property taxes. This is a positive step. And during that period of time, we will be able to hopefully expand the state's economy by doing things like lowering and simplifying the rate on corporations, and in particular helping upstate, where manufacturing is such an important part of the economy, by dramatically lowering the income tax on manufacturers and beginning the process of creating property tax relief as well. Small businesses play a critical role in creating jobs, and by raising that estate tax exemption, we are telling the owners of those small businesses, whether they're industrial or farm, stay here, and you're not going to have to move to another state to avoid getting clobbered with unfair estate taxes. And energy taxes also are far too high, and by eliminating that temporary surcharge on energy bills, we will be helping to send the right message and the right economic environment to people looking to help grow the state's economy. To me, one of the single most important things we have to do is understand that it's small businesses that create the jobs, and small business owners generally pay the personal income tax. The governor has appropriately said that in 2018, the temporary income tax surcharge on personal income will expire, and one of the important recommendations of this commission is that in 2018, that temporary higher personal income tax go away. And I believe that that is one of, if not the single most important thing we can do to get this state's economy growing the way it should be growing. So I think we've advanced a balanced program that's going to help families deal with the issue of property taxes, that's going to help businesses understand this is a place where they can stay and grow and thrive, and that will help in the future to create the environment where people want to be here, want to invest here, and want to create jobs. So again, to all the members of the commission, and particularly to the governor, thank you for this opportunity. And now I know it's very simple that the legislature will simply go ahead and ratify immediately all of the recommendations we've advanced this morning.
Yes, that is exactly how it is supposed to work,
Right.
Governor. A couple of quick points, and then I'd like to hear from the other members of the commission and the county executives who are with us today. I think Comptroller McCall's point is exactly right. This is good news. It's good news that the state is in the position to contemplate tax cuts. Just 3 years ago, we were looking at a $10 billion deficit. It was this large mountain that we were faced with that was seemingly impossible to deal with. We've dealt with the deficits. We did what we had to do. We had to make some tough choices. We passed a property tax cap. We've reduced spending on the state side down to 2%. The property tax cap, 2% on local government side. We reduced the state workforce. We renegotiated the labor contract on the state side. And we now are in a position where we're looking at a surplus, which allows us to invest more and to keep doing what we've been doing to generate the economy even more and thus generate more tax revenue. So it's good news that we are in a position, and we have, frankly, this luxury of how do you invest the quote-unquote surplus, because we've done what we had to do, and we've been controlling spending. I also believe the direction is right. We must do something about the proliferation of just the number of governments we have in the state of New York. Why do we pay a lot of taxes? Because we have a lot of governments. We literally have a lot of governments. When you add up state, county, local, town, village, lighting district, water district, special district, another district just to count the other districts, it comes out to 10,500 governments in the state of New York. Think about that. Every morning you wake up, you're turning on 10,500 light switches, 10,500 fleets of cars, 10,500 insurance policies. Just the cost of that government going up even at the rate of inflation is crushing. And I started talking about this, frankly, when I was Attorney General. We have to do something about reducing the number and the cost of local government. And that's what's driving property taxes. There's a concept called shared services, which is exactly right, which says get these governments to work together to streamline their operations. Not everyone has to do everything. Not every town, not every village has to do its own payroll, its own insurance, its own legal, its own purchasing. There has to be a way to streamline services. Corporate America did this 30 years ago, and government is 30 years behind because government doesn't have the natural pressures to be competitive and efficient. But we have to do something about the cost of local government. This, as Governor Pataki said, will give us an opportunity to do that. It will reduce the pressure on the homeowner for 2 years. Simultaneously, the plan would be investing in business development by reducing business taxes, thus generating more revenue. Also in the interim, shared services and that hard work that has to happen on the local level would be done. We have county executives with us today. I do not underestimate how hard it is to get governments to cooperate one with another. I get it. I understand the concept of streamlining is easy to say, but it's very hard to do in practice. I get it. We've been going through it on the state side. But we also understand that it is vitally important. And Governor Pataki is exactly right. We'll now hand this report to the legislature. They will enact it immediately, and good things will happen to the state of New York, or something like that. But I look forward to the conversation with the legislature, and I believe that this informed, thoughtful product will help the legislature also, because this in many ways depoliticizes the issue and says, let's focus on the facts and let's focus on the policy rather than the politics. And I want to thank Governor George Pataki in particular. He has certainly done his duty for the state of New York, 12 years of service and then some. And trust me, after 3 years of that service, 12 years must be an incredibly, incredibly long time, because 3 years is long. So he has made an extraordinary contribution to the state of New York, above and beyond. And he was very gracious and kind to once again take his time to engage in that. So let's give him a personal thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
As well as former Controller McCall is also chairman of SUNY, so he's also doing double duty. In that capacity, I saw him taking notes, Reverend Butts, as he was walking around, by the way. I don't know if that's good news or bad news. And the commission members who are here and who have separate lives and separate businesses, I want to thank them very much for taking the time. Any comments from the other commissioners or County Executive Ballone, County Executive Mangano?
I do have a comment, Governor, if I may. It was a privilege to be part of the work of this commission, and I think that this is a good package with many strong elements and will help the economy of the state. It already reflects your strong focus on the property tax, but I think it omits one element that could make it, give it broader coverage and better balance. As you know, renters also bear the burden of property taxes, and we have millions of people in the state of New York who rent and don't own the property they live in. With that in mind, I'd suggest some element of property tax relief for low-income renters could help balance the package and make it more fair. I hope you'll consider that as you're moving ahead to put your budget together. Thank you.
Especially in the city of New York, where it's more about a renter's credit than a homeowner's credit, for obvious reasons, as Bill Rudin knows well. Any other comments? County Executive Steve Ballone.
Governor, I want to thank you for the recommendations in this report, and the committee members, of course, Chairman McCall and Governor Pataki. You hit the nail on the head when you talk about property taxes. It is an incredible burden out here on Long Island and in Suffolk County. As a former town supervisor, I've actually knocked on thousands of homeowners' doors, and literally that is the topic that comes up at every home. So that is great news, but I I very much like the aspect of incentivizing working together, because I agree completely that the only way that we're going to reduce tax burdens and bend the cost curve over time is to have governments become more efficient, governments themselves and working together. I know we have been working on streamlining county government, consolidating departments, but it is important that we also work together with the multiple jurisdictions to figure out how we can reduce costs. And my experience is, unless there is some kind of incentive in place, governments and people don't like to change. So I think that element of the package is very important, and I think it'll be very helpful in accomplishing this goal. So thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve Ballone. County Executive Ed Mangano?
Sure. I'd like to thank Governor Cuomo and Governor Pataki, the commission, for their initiatives. Obviously, good news whenever you're talking about cutting taxes. I mean, obviously, this commission's recommendations will make Nassau County and New York State more affordable for our residents. It will create more jobs and opportunities by encouraging business growth here, and a strong economy really is the answer and solves a lot of problems for all of our municipalities here. So I'd urge our legislators to come together and move this package forward, take their input, and obviously, this is something that I, no doubt in my mind, will stimulate job growth here in our county and in our state. And the fact of the matter is, having the moniker of the highest tax state in the country is not good. It's not good for business. It's not good for homeowners. And I think you're on the right course in the right direction. We're happy to support it.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Anyone else? With that, I'll turn it back to Dr. Butts. Thank you.
Turn it back. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that ends our gathering this morning, and we are certainly happy to have you come back whenever you wish. Governor, are you entertaining any other questions from the floor?
I think we're good.
I think we're good, so thank you very much. Enjoy the beautiful weather. God bless you.